Good day. Thanks for tuning in to our October RegFacts briefing. I'm Donna Cameron. I am part of Continuity's Regulatory Operations Center. And today we are going to recap some of the more significant items that our center processed during the month of October. And we will start with the Consumer Financial Protection Agency. The first one is pretty much standard. They issued their 2023 thresholds for regulations M and Z. They also issued the threshold for your determination of whether you need an appraisal for a higher priced mortgage loan. So those thresholds increased just a little bit, and they will be effective on January 1st. Then we had a couple of more interesting things from the CFPB. The first one was in the form of a compliance bulletin, and this one addressed the legality and the fairness of what is often known as a returned deposited item fee. And this is a fee that you may charge a consumer if they deposit a check and then that check is returned because there were insufficient funds to cover it. So the CFPB's position on this one is that in most cases, the consumer had no way of knowing the check would not be covered, and so it would be unfair for you to charge them a fee for that. And so they are putting us on notice that they will consider those fees most of the time to be unfair under the Consumer Financial Protection Act, and they could be subject to an enforcement action, even if you have disclosed that you will be charging them. So they don't care that you disclosed it. They feel the fee itself is just unfair. The second thing that they issued is along the same lines. This one was in the form of a Consumer Financial Protection Circular, and this had to do with what the CFPB calls unanticipated overdraft fees. And the specific situation here that they referenced was a consumer doing a debit card transaction, and at that time, it shows that their account balance is positive and that there's enough money to cover the transaction. But then at the end of the day, it turns out after processing everything and settling up, they are overdrawn and they get hit with a fee. Again, even if you have disclosed your processing order and how you do that, the CFPB feels that a reasonable consumer could not possibly understand that and how it might impact that transaction and a fee they might get charged. So again, they would consider those fees to be unfair and potentially issue an enforcement action if you charge them. So you want to be looking at how you are assessing those types of fees if you do. Then we move to the FDIC. They did finalize the 2% increase in deposit insurance assessment rates. This one was generating quite a bit of pushback from the industry, but they went ahead and finalized that 2% increase, and that will take effect with the first quarterly assessment period of 2023. So you'll want to see how that's going to impact you. They also proposed changes to their guidelines for when you want to appeal a material supervisory determination. They had updated these guidelines a while ago, and now they are revising or proposing to revise them again. This time, they would expand and clarify the roles of the agency's ombudsman, and they would specifically propose to have the ombudsman be a non-voting member of the SARC committee. They would also propose that any materials that the committee considers would be shared with both parties. And they would propose to allow an institution to ask for a stay of a determination if they had an appeal pending. So again, those are proposed changes, and they would like to hear comments by November 21st. Then we had another final rule that the FDIC adopted. This one would incorporate updated accounting standards that would generally replace the TDR in the risk-based assessments system that the FDIC uses to calculate assessments for large and highly complex depository institutions. So that new standard will be effective on January 1st. From the Federal Reserve, we had another final rule that was a little bit controversial. This one amends Regulation II on debit card interchange fees and routing, and it specifically requires that that debit card transactions can be processed on at least 2 unaffiliated payment card networks. And they wanted to be very clear here that that requirement applies to card not present transactions. They did say that most financial institutions are already in compliance with this, but there was some confusion about those card not present transactions. So they made it clear that the 2 unaffiliated network requirement does apply to those. And then they also clarified that it is the responsibility of the debit card issuer to have enabled at least 2 unaffiliated networks to process a debit card transaction. So there was quite a bit in this one. You'll want to look at this, and it is effective July 1st of next year. And then also from the Federal Reserve, we had an announcement about their implementation of the ISO 20022 messaging format for the FedWire Funds Service. That will be implemented by the Fed on March 10th of 2025. They are going to go ahead and do it on a single day. They had initially proposed to do it in 3 stages, but they decided it was better for everybody to do it, flip the switch on one day. So they are giving you until March 10th of 2025 to be ready, and they believe you will need that time because this is significant. So within this announcement, there are some testing environments that will need to be performed to make sure that you are ready. They also talk about a backout strategy in case they get close to that date and find out it's not going to work. How do you get out of it? And then there's a lot of other information in there about implementation. So you're definitely going to want to look at that because it will be a requirement that that is used. From OFAC, we had some guidance on how you can comply with OFAC sanctions for those transactions using instant payment systems. So these are those systems where money is sent and received almost immediately. And because things happen so quickly, it can be a challenge for you to figure out how to comply with OFAC sanctions. So they did issue this guidance to help you there. And then from FinCEN, we had an announcement of some relief for those of you who have to require or who have to file reports of foreign bank and financial accounts, the FBAR form. If you were a victim of Hurricane Fiona in Puerto Rico, or Hurricane Ian in Florida or North or South Carolina, or the storms and floods that hit parts of Alaska, then you can take until February 15th of next year to file your 2021 report. If you were not a victim of any of those disasters, then you still had to have filed by October 15th. And then we had FinCEN once again renew the geographic targeting order that's been in place for several years now, and that's focused on title insurance companies engaged in mostly cash-only real estate transactions. So this targeting order has been there, like I said, for quite a while. They do it for about 6 months at a time, but they have been continually renewing it. So they've done that again. It is now scheduled to expire on April 24th of next year. They also, again, expanded the geographic area that this covers. So the new area includes the Texas counties of Harris, Montgomery, and Webb. So if you are a title insurance company doing business in any of these areas, or you are a financial institution that does significant business with these title insurance companies, you just want to be aware that the GTO is still in place and now includes those 3 new counties. So something to be looking at there. And then FinCEN also did their update of the FATF lists of jurisdictions that are not doing what they should to combat money laundering and terrorism and weapons of mass destruction proliferation. So these are, there are 2 lists. One is the high-risk jurisdictions subject to a call for action. There was a change here, which we have not seen a change on this list for quite a while, But in addition to North Korea and Iran, who have been on this list for quite a while, they have added Burma now. So you will want to take a look if you do any transactions with Burma. Make sure you know what your responsibilities are now. And then the other list is the list of jurisdictions that are subject to increased monitoring. They made some changes to this list. This time, they eliminated Nicaragua and Pakistan from the list. They added the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Mozambique, and Tanzania. So some changes there that you might want to take a look and make sure that your software is recognizing, and you may need to update procedures here. From the FFIEC, we had an update of their 2018 Cybersecurity Resource Guide. So in the last 4 years, a lot of things have changed in cybersecurity, and this specific update was done to incorporate ransomware-specific resources that you can go to help address that ongoing threat. From the NCUA, we had a couple of proposed rules. One of them would amend federal credit union bylaws so that a credit union could expel a member for cause with a 2/3 vote of a quorum of the board of directors. And so that would be a change in the way you can expel a member. And they want comments on that one by December 2nd. The other one would make a couple of changes related to the maturity of subordinated debt notes and grandfathered secondary capital. And that also has a comment due date of December 2nd. From the Farm Credit Administration, we had a revised book letter that gives you guidance on the Farm Credit Administration's expectations on how you will determine your allowance for credit losses for loans and other financial assets. And of course, this has to do with your implementation of CECL, which is expected for everybody by January 1st of 2023. So if you're a Farm Credit Administration institution, you will need to look at that. And lastly, from the Federal Trade Commission, we have a request for comments on a rulemaking that they are thinking about writing. So this one would be a rule that would specifically prohibit people from pretending to be a government agency or a member of government staff or a business. And of course, this comes from the fact that we're all getting these emails and phone calls. And unless you look closely, sometimes you will think they might come from a real business or a government agency. And in fact, of course, they are not. So the FTC is thinking they might need to write a rule that would specifically prohibit this. So they want your thoughts on that by December 16th. So that is a recap of some of the things that we handled during the month of October. And I will be talking with you again next month. So enjoy your November, and I look forward to seeing you then.